This is the second of a series of brief videos organized around my acronym EXPAND. The E stands for enlarging, opening up from tunnel vision, getting unstuck by using practices that reinforce states of mindfulness, flow, attunement, and spirituality. Enlarging fundamentally changes our experience. It gives us the ability to step back emotionally, mentally, and physiologically. And as we stay grounded in mindfulness and similar healing states, obstacles start to come into view. Originally, I used the X in EXPAND to stand for extracting the barriers. Though it's appealing to think we might completely rid ourselves of barriers to our healing and growing, that's probably only a narcissistic fantasy, to think we can remove them. We often can't. But I think as we expand, we can transform our blockages and utilize and redirect the energies. I now use the X in EXPAND to stand for exposing the barriers. Rather than trying to eliminate our challenges, we are wiser to seek to recognize what is in our way, to look deeply beyond the appearance. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. I learn by going where I have to go. That is Theodore Roethke, The Waking. As a therapist, I don't presume to know what we will discover as we enter into the flow of a session, any more than I know at the start of a painting what it will be like as it progresses. What is important eventually reveals itself. There's a special state that I want to draw attention to as a state of being both in and out simultaneously. Artists often talk about the creative activity in this way. It is mindlessness and deliberate mindfulness, being in the artist's professional self while guided by the muse or intuition or inspiration. A similar state in therapy. We learn how to see the problem clearly without believing this person in the room with us is the problem. In EMDR trauma therapy, there's the notion of dual awareness, being here in the present while simultaneously being in the adversity of the past. Richard Schwartz, the creator of Eternal Family Systems, similarly talks about unblending, differentiating from the parts of us, bringing awareness so we can find some distance from any fragment of self that has been unconsciously running the show. Exposing the barriers, we take our waking slow. With this double vision, being in and out, both here and there, what we have been blind to enters into our focal awareness, where only then do we have the possibility of making distinctions and conscious choices. Exposing the barriers. What are the barriers? Essentially, all barriers are repetitive patterns. Depending on perspective, we might call them multi-generational burdens, neurofiring patterns in our brain and nervous system, mammalian survival adaptations, well-delineated roles and rules, beliefs we have learned in our bones. Well-worn patterns are barriers where they constrict us and rob us of our ability to be spontaneous and creative. When a pattern becomes a barrier powerful enough to block the path to healing and growth, you can expect to find within us, deep underneath, something painful, vulnerable, what Internal Family Systems calls the exile. We exile parts of us for a reason. Whenever the raw inside of us begins to be exposed, it triggers fearful voices, cries for us to stop our exploration. The pain will be too much. There's no point in going there. There's nothing to be done. You won't be able to handle it. You'll be seen as weak or wimpy or ugly or unlovable. Safer to stay in the forest than to be in the field prey to the predators. In Internal Family Systems theory, these voices belong to protectors. And so, to this painting, in this composition, a vulnerable boy is shielded by wolves against the dangerous beast. They are wolfish protectors, certainly, and though the wolves may be of indeterminate age, what they guard always seems young and childlike. For most of us, it's easy to imagine the tender, wounded child within. Often protectors are the first energetic source we encounter as we enlarge. They themselves are the first barrier to the truth as they throw themselves in our way, seeking to shield what is vulnerable. Protectors have basically two kinds of fear that drive them. Some want to save our wounded child from overwhelm, from being bullied again, terrorized and hurt in an old familiar way. I imagine these wolves in this painting are this kind. Or they want to save themselves from the embarrassment of a wounded child running amok. They don't want to appear weak, needy, a baby, like a victim. They want to appear normal, and so they hate being laughed at. Wolves like that might choose to devour the boy and silence him. In any process of healing and growth with increasing awareness, we will want to consider if a protector's level of hypervigilance has outlived its usefulness. Likely their response was instilled in a world that no longer exists or is irrelevant. What were dangerous beasts are less so, or not at all. Stephen Porges calls it faulty neuroception, the way our nervous system can be wired by our earliest experiences primed and so easily triggered into fight or flight or submission, magnifying threats, even perceiving dangers where there are none. We might need to ask protectors to give us more room to travel our path. We might even make that a daily prayer or find other ways to settle our body down and remind us of our intention. Enlarging, exposing the barriers. Already, our essential inquiry is starting to speak to us with more clarity. Which of the many creatures who live in the wild fields and forests inside of me will dominate today? Who or how will I be? What will I embody? And who will decide?